In this video, you will understand why your financial life does not change just when you earn more, but when you learn to think differently about money. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that many people work hard for money, but few learn to make money work for them. And this is where the turning point begins. Before seeking a higher income, you need to train your mind to stop acting like a consumer and start acting like an investor. So ask yourself a simple question right now. Is the money that came into your account this month building your future or just paying for your past? Because if every month your paycheck arrives and disappears into bills, installments, impulse purchases, and expenses you don't even notice, the problem is not just the amount of your salary. The problem is the direction you are giving it. And in this video, I will show you how to use your mental faculties, your imagination, your reason, your will, and your discipline to create a new financial reality. Not a life based on magic formulas, but on clear thinking, better decisions and actions repeated every day. The first practical step is simple. Take a sheet of paper and write down the biggest financial problem you are facing today. It could be debt, lack of control, fear of investing, a low salary, or difficulty saving money. Then look at that problem not as a sentence, but as a challenge that can be solved with a new mindset. Because when you put the problem on paper, it stops being a confusion inside your head and starts to become something you can analyze, face, and change. This is where the first great turning point begins. Now that you have already put your biggest financial problem on paper, the second move comes looking at that problem from multiple angles. Because many people always look at their own financial difficulty in the same way. The person says, "I earn too little. Nothing is left over. My life is just like this. I have no luck. I can't save money." And when they repeat this every day, the mind starts to accept it as truth. But those who think like investors do things differently. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that the rich do not just ask, "How much do I earn?" They ask, "How can I make this money grow?" So instead of looking at the problem as a wall, you start looking at it as a door, searching for the key. Take the problem you wrote down. Let's imagine it is, "I can't save money." Now ask, "Why can't I save?" Maybe you'll discover it's not because your salary is impossible to organize, but because you spend before setting anything aside. Maybe you'll discover you make impulse purchases. Maybe you'll realize you use your credit card as if it were extra income. Maybe you'll see that you have forgotten subscriptions, small daily expenses, or installments that are quietly eating away at your future. Then ask another question. What would a person with an investor mindset do in my place? They would not just complain. They would start looking for numbers. They would check the bank statement. They would separate expenses. They would cut waste. They would set a small goal. Maybe they would start by saving only a symbolic amount, but they would start. Because the investor understands that the first goal is not to get rich tomorrow. The first goal is to take control. Now imagine another problem. I have debts. The person with a common mindset thinks, "I am lost." But the person with a financial mindset thinks, "Which debt has the highest interest? Which one can I negotiate first? What expense can I cut for 30 days to speed up this payment? What skill can I learn to generate extra income?" Do you notice the difference? The problem is the same, but the mind looking at it is different. And when the mind changes, the answers start to appear. That is why, whenever you face a financial difficulty, don't leave it floating around in your head. Write it down, observe it, ask questions, break it into small parts, because a problem inside the mind looks like a monster. But a problem on paper starts to become a plan. And this is a powerful, practical step. Stop saying, "There is no way," and start asking, "What is the next smart move?" That question changes everything, because maybe the next move is canceling an expense. Maybe it is selling something that is sitting idle. Maybe it is studying basic investments. Maybe it is stopping installment purchases. Maybe it is setting aside 10% of your salary. Maybe it is building a simple extra income. The important thing is to understand. Your mind needs to stop running away from the problem and start working on it. This is how an ordinary person begins to think like someone who builds wealth. First they see clearly, then they organize, then they act. And over time, what seemed impossible starts to become clearer. Before continuing, I left a gift for you in the pinned comment. Because if you truly want to grow, you need to study, not just watch videos. It is a simple ebook to help you take the first steps with more clarity and direction. Get it now, while it is still available to the first people who want to start today. Now, after understanding that every financial problem needs to be put on paper and observed clearly, we enter a very important part: imagination and will. Because before a person can change their reality, they need to be able to imagine a different reality. Many people do not grow financially because deep down they have already accepted life as it is. The person looks at the bills, looks at the salary, looks at the difficulties and thinks, this is just how it is, there is not much to do. But when they start using their imagination intelligently, something changes. They start to ask, what if I managed my money better? What if I learned a new skill? What if I created an extra income? What if I started investing a little, but every month? Robert Kiyosaki teaches that the mind needs to see opportunities before the financial life can change. Because those who only see problems stay stuck, but those who train their mind to see possibilities start to act differently. So do a simple exercise. Imagine the best scenario for your financial life. Not as a fantasy, but as a direction. Imagine yourself without heavy debts. Imagine an emergency fund growing. Imagine a portion of your money working in assets. Imagine yourself making decisions calmly, without desperation, without always living on the edge. Now comes the will. Imagining is important, but it is not enough. You need a firm will to act even when you are not feeling motivated. Because in the beginning, changing financial habits is not comfortable. You feel like buying things. You feel like giving up. You feel like going back to autopilot. But that is where the will needs to take command. Every day, choose one small action that strengthens your new direction. Write down an expense. Avoid an impulse purchase. Study 10 minutes about money. Set aside a small amount, review a debt, think before buying on installments. It may seem like little, but this is how the mind grows stronger. Imagination shows you where you want to go. Will keeps you walking, even when the path still seems slow. And when these two forces work together, your life starts to come off autopilot. Now we enter another important point. The mental faculties you need to develop in order to grow financially. Many people think that to improve their lives, they just need to work more. But Robert Kiyosaki teaches that working hard without thinking better can keep a person trapped in the same cycle. Because it is not just physical effort that builds wealth. It is thinking, strategy, and decision-making. And here come three forces that you already have within you: memory, intuition, and reason. Memory serves to help you learn from the past. Look at your financial life and ask, what mistakes do I keep repeating? At what moments did I spend without thinking? What decisions put me in debt? The goal is not to blame yourself, it is to learn. Because those who do not learn from their own mistakes end up paying the same bill multiple times. Intuition is that internal perception that often tries to warn you. You know when a proposal seems too good to be true, when someone promises easy money, when you sense that a purchase will weigh on you at the end of the month, but you go ahead anyway. Many times, your intuition has already sensed the danger before your reason has accepted it. But intuition needs to go hand in hand with reason. Reason is the ability to think clearly. It means looking at the numbers, comparing options, calculating risks, asking questions, and not acting only on emotion. Those who use reason do not buy just because they are excited. They do not invest just because someone mentioned it. They do not take on debt just because the installment fits today without thinking about tomorrow. And this is where the financial life begins to change. When you use memory, you stop repeating old mistakes. When you listen to intuition, you start to notice paths and warnings. When you use reason, you make smarter decisions. School often teaches many important things, but does not always go deep into how to deal with money, emotions, choices, and investments. That is why you need to take on that responsibility yourself. Start training your mind every day. Before buying, think. Before investing, study. Before accepting a debt, calculate. Before complaining about your salary, observe where it is going. Because a person who thinks better makes better decisions. And a person who makes better decisions starts to build a different financial life, even starting with little. Now, we come to an essential part, the financial mindset. Because money is not won through physical effort alone. It is not enough to work a lot if the mind remains stuck in the same pattern. Many people wake up early, put in the effort, work overtime, come home exhausted, but stay in the same place because they never learn to think like someone who builds wealth. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that the difference between the poor, the middle class, and the rich is not only in how much each one earns, but in what each one does with the money they receive. The person with a poor mindset thinks, "I work to pay bills." The person with an investor mindset thinks, "I work to buy assets." This difference changes everything, because when you only work to pay bills, your life becomes a wheel. The paycheck comes in, the bills go out, the month ends, and the next month it all starts again. But when you start thinking about assets, even if you still earn little, you start looking for ways to make a portion of your money grow. And here comes an important truth. No one needs to start big to start right. Imagine someone who started with no money, no experience, with debts, and without knowing exactly how to get out of that situation. That person could have accepted the reality and said, "This is just how my life is." But instead, they decided to use their mind to look for a way out. They began by observing simple opportunities. They noticed that many people needed cleaning services. It was not something luxurious, it was not something impressive, but it was a real need. So they started small, offering a service, doing good work, learning from mistakes, better organizing their time and reinvesting part of the money. In the beginning, it was just hard work, but then strategy started to come in. They realized they could not keep doing everything alone forever. So they started thinking like an entrepreneur. They improved the service. They created processes. They learned to charge better. They hired people. They organized clients. They reinvested in the business. And what started as a simple solution to pay bills kept growing until it became a cleaning company with high revenue. Do you notice the difference? The change did not begin with a lot of money. It began with a new way of thinking. This is the financial mindset you need to develop. Look at what you have today and ask, how can I transform this into something greater? Maybe you have little money, but you have time. Maybe you have little time, but you have a skill. Maybe you have a simple skill, but you can turn it into income. Maybe you only have a salary, but you can set a portion aside to learn, invest, and build something. The mistake is waiting for life to be perfect before starting. Those who think like investors start with what they have. They learn along the way. They adjust along the way. They grow along the way. Because wealth does not begin when money is left over. Wealth begins when you decide to give an intelligent purpose to the little you already have. Now we enter a part that can open your mind. The 3 types of goals. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that many people do not advance financially because they live trapped within what they already know. They do the same work, make the same decisions, spend the same way, and expect a different life. But a new life requires a new goal. There are Type A, Type B, and Type C goals. A Type A goal is something you already know how to do. It is repeating what you already do every day. For example, continuing to work the same way, earning the same salary, paying the same bills, and living the same routine. There is nothing wrong with doing what you know, but this type of goal rarely changes your life because it only keeps you where you already are. A Type B goal is a little bigger. It is something you think you can do. Maybe saving a little more, cutting some expenses, taking a course, changing jobs, or starting a simple extra income. This type of goal already helps because it takes you off autopilot and shows that there is room to grow. But the most powerful goal is Type C. A Type C goal is the true dream. It is what you deeply desire, even without knowing yet how you will achieve it. It could be achieving financial freedom, getting out of debt, building assets, starting a business, living with more peace of mind, or making money work for you. And here is the important point. You do not need to know the entire path before you start. Many people freeze because they think, but I don't know how I will get there. But if you only choose goals you already know how to achieve, you will keep living only within your current limits. A Type C goal forces your mind to grow. It makes you study more, look for new answers, talk to different people, change habits, and notice opportunities that used to pass you by. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, what is the financial goal that truly moves me? Not that small goal just to survive the month, but the one that makes you think, if I achieve this, my life changes. Write that goal down, put it on paper, because a goal kept only in the head becomes a loose wish, but a goal written down starts to become a direction. And remember, a Type C goal is not born to seem easy. It is born to awaken a new version of you, a version that does not just live paying bills, but begins to build a life with more freedom, clarity, and purpose. Before moving on to the final part, let me remind you of something important. I left a gift for you in the pinned comment, a simple ebook to help you study and take the first steps with more clarity. Because if you truly want to grow, you need to study, not just watch videos. So get that gift now, while it is still available, and then stay with me until the end. Now, returning to the main point, after you define a bigger goal, you need to align your mind with this new reality. There is no point in saying you want financial freedom, but continuing to think, feel, and act like someone who is stuck in the past. If you want a different life, you need to start behaving like someone who is building that life. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that those who want to become wealthy need to change the way they think about money. A person cannot keep seeing money only as something to pay bills and buy things. They need to start seeing money as a tool to buy assets, generate income, and build freedom. It is as if you need to change your mental frequency. If every day you think, I can't do this, this is not for me, I will never get out of this, your mind starts looking for proof that it is true. But when you start repeating, I can learn, I can organize my life, I can start small, I can build assets over time, your mind starts looking for paths. But here comes the challenge. Old patterns will try to pull you back. These patterns are like old programs inside the mind. They tell you to spend everything. They tell you to leave it for later. They say investing is difficult. They say studying money is a waste of time. They say you were not born for this. But you do not need to obey those thoughts. You need to replace them. And the best way to do this is through repetition. Every day, feed your mind with better ideas. Study a little. Read a few pages. Watch content that teaches you something practical. Review your goals. Look at your expenses. Remember your objective. Because the mind believes what you repeat with consistency. In the beginning, it may feel strange. Maybe you still do not see yourself as someone who is financially organized. Maybe you still have debts. Maybe you are still afraid to invest. But with repetition, your new identity starts to be born. You stop being someone who merely survives the month and start becoming someone who builds. And the most beautiful thing is that you do not need to know the entire path right now. You only need to take the next right step. Today, the next step might be writing down your expenses. Tomorrow, it might be cutting a waste. The day after, it might be studying about assets. Then it might be building your emergency fund. Then it might be starting to invest with a little. And when you look back, you will realize the dots started to connect. What seemed small became direction. What seemed difficult became a habit. What seemed distant started to feel possible. So if you have made it this far, understand one thing. Your financial life does not change only when your salary increases. It changes when your mind changes, when your habits change, and when your decisions start to build the future you desire. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Start with what you have. Study, organize, learn, invest in knowledge, seek assets. Stop living only to pay bills and start building a life with more freedom. And if this video spoke to you, like it now, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here you will keep learning to think like an investor and to make better use of your money. And before you leave, write in the comments, "I will start today." Write that as a commitment to yourself, because when you affirm this, you are telling your mind that you will no longer postpone your own change. And don't forget, the gift is in the pinned comment. Get the ebook, study it carefully, and take your first step today.